Hey Bubblers, it's been a while since I've made a video like this, but there's been some questions, and um, yeah, hopefully we'll have more videos coming out. But there was a specific question asked of me on Twitter, and I promised a video as an answer. It's a video I've been wanting to make anyway, but it's how to create a horizontally scrolling repeating group, and in the new Flex editor. So it's actually fairly simple to do. Requires just a tiny little bit of CSS to do it well. And so what we're going to build is this right here. So you can see we have repeating group, and we have 4 columns: first name, last name, email, phone number. It's just a bunch of users. And if we make this smaller, you can see now the table starts going off to the right, and so we have a frozen top row or header row, so we can see what the column is that we're looking at, and we can scroll through all our users, and it doesn't matter what size the screen is. It automatically automatically starts scrolling horizontally when it runs out of space on the screen. So let's dive in. All right, we'll jump into the editor here, and I'm going to just add a new page. We're going to start from scratch, and we'll call this Hor Scroll, and we'll create this. So the important part is understanding the structure of what we're going to create. And so we'll start there, create some colorful groups and everything, so we can see exactly what's happening, like what are we looking at to create this structure. And then the great thing is that once you understand how to create the structure of elements you need for this horizontal scroll, you can use it for anything. It doesn't have to be just a repeating group or displaying a table. You can add any content that you want into this structure, and you'll get that scroll. So we've changed this to responsive, and I'm going to set this layout to align to parent, which is pretty much how I set every page with the new with the Flex engine on Bubble, as is aligned to parent, because it allows me to add elements directly to the root page without interrupting the flow of my other elements on the page. So then, as a to get around that, then I'm going to add a content group that's of column, in which I can add my other elements in. So first thing we'll do is we'll grab this group, and this is fantastic. I love Bubble's new indication of where things will be set. So we're going to set this as top and center on the page itself, and we'll just call this page content. All right, now this one will be column, and I'm going to make this simple. I'm just going to set this to a max width of 960 pixels and a minimum width of 0. We don't want this to fit the content. We want it to stretch the full height. And so we're going to set min height on this as well to 0 and remove the fit height to content. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just inside this page content group. So here we're going to just drop a header group. We'll call this header. I'm going to make this row. It doesn't really matter. I'm just putting a single text element in it. And we'll set that to 0. We want it full width. And in fact, let's go ahead and add some color here. So the page content group, I'm going to give it padding all the way around. So we'll just give it 24 pixels of padding all the way around. That will put everything, all our elements, all our content inside this group. It'll give a nice even 24 pixel white space all the way around the entire page content. So that's not necessarily what you want to do on your pages, depending on what you're building. It's actually unusual that I would put the margin directly on the page content group, because sometimes you want or actually even having max width on that page content group, because sometimes you want sections to go full width of the screen, and that would interfere with that. For what we're doing today, we're going to make it simple on ourselves. Okay, so we have our 24 pixel padding, and I'm actually going to give a row gap of 24 as well, just so we don't have to worry about setting that. And then in this header group, let's go ahead and add text, and this will just say horizontal scrolling repeating group. Just as a little description of what we're doing. We're just using Bubbles default styles for this. So we're going to remove the make element fixed width. We don't need a minimum width on this, and we're going to change the min height. I just set it to 10. And the reason I like to keep something here in my min height, just so that, for instance, if the text would somehow disappear, you actually have something besides just a line that you can click into. So, but you want that min height to be less than what this text will automatically stretch the height to on that element. So we'll set that to 10. That's going to be good enough there, and we're going to we do want this to fit to content, and we're going to give this a min height of 10 as well. And this is just the parent group on that text. Okay, perfect. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and add some colors to the page group itself. So we'll just do a flat color. Let's grab this and reduce the opacity. And so if we preview this, remember this was the other page we were working on. Okay, so this is what we have. We have 960 pixel max width on the page content group. Here's our title. And so the next thing we need to do is, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this responsive setting off so we can see a full page. So what we want to do is we want to have an actual window group, right, that we're going to show this table in. And so the structure is we have a window group that's going to be our parent group, and that is going to provide the space or the opening in the page, right, that we're seeing the table through. So I'm going to go ahead and add these. Hopefully this makes sense as we go along. So first thing we're going to do, add a group here, and I'm going to call this view window. Try to keep these named specifically so that we have so it's easy to follow along. And I'm going to give this a color as well. Let's just make this purple and reduce the opacity. And so this one we're going to set to, actually we're going to set this to align to parent as well. We could set it to row or column, but it's going to be simpler right now just to do align to parent. And I'm going to give this a 0 min width. And let's not fit height to content right now. We'll give it a 0 height. We do want this to fit height to content ultimately, but just while we're working inside here, well, you know what? Let's rather than do that, let's just do a 300 min height, and we're going to fit this to content. That's going to be too confusing if we don't set that. All right, so we do want the fit height to content on our window group. So again, this is the window, right? So if we're looking at this page here, let's go ahead and refresh. This is the window in which we want the table that we're viewing to reside. So if we go to inspect again here and we go into responsive view, as this closes down, this window is defining. So this is where we're defining where we want to see content. All right, so that's why we call it the view window. It's like a box that we're looking through to see content. Okay. Inside this group, we're going to add another group. And I'm going to go ahead and set this at the top right. And this one is going to be called content. right? Here we'll just name it scrolling content. So this group will be I'm going to set it to column. That's what we're going to need for what we're doing today. And we don't want this to be fixed width. We actually want to set this. I'm going to set percentage, and we want to set this to 100% as a minimum width. And we're going to set fit width to content. So the min width will override this fit width to content. So it will force it to go to the full width of our view window, right? And then the fit width to content will then expand it past that. So if the content extends past 100% of our view window, it will force it to overflow outside of that view window. So we still have all the content as we want to see it, but in a scrolling view. So I'm going to give this a gradient so we can see something scrolling left to right. And that's fine there, I think. Let's just make this part a little bit more colorful. And we can see as we scroll then. So in fact, I'm going to give this, let's just put it here. So we have it directly in the center for now. And if we go back and we preview again, so we will see, so we have our page, then we have our view window, which is this kind of darker blue, and then our content scroll, or scrolling content group, which is this gradient view. So let's go ahead and make this, let's just say 150% as a min width. And now we're going to look at this again. Let's take this off. Okay, so now we can see this is what we want, right? We have our view window, and inside that view window we have a group that contains our content that is extending past this view window. Now what we don't want is to be able to see it, because as you'll be able to see, if we try to make this responsive, the page will always extend to the width of this scrolling content, and that is not going to work well for us. So this is where just a slight bit of CSS comes in. And so what we want to do is we want to convert our view window group. By default, Bubble is setting it, in CSS terms, is setting it to overflow is visible, which is why we're seeing the content inside it go past. What we want to do is we want to change that so that the overflow, and we're going to specify X. So overflow dash X, which is right to left axis, is auto. And that will take, the browser will say, okay, we're going to automatically change this this overflow, and by default, if it fits within the view window that we're trying to see, the overflow will just be set to visible as it is. It doesn't matter, it's not overflowing. But as soon as it overflows, then it's going to change it to scroll, which will then let us scroll back and forth. So to set this CSS, what we want to do is go into our view window here, since this is the one that will be controlling the view, and we're going to give this an ID attribute. And for this, we'll just say scroll hyphen horizontal, right? And then the actual code for this. So you can put it, generally you would put it right here in the HTML header, or you could put it over here in settings, here in your script tags in the header. But since I am on a free plan, neither one of those will work. So we're going to grab an HTML element, which is a default with Bubble. And we're just going to set it on the page. I'm going to just drop it here in the bottom left corner. And we'll go into the HTML editor, and we want to open it with a style tag, and then we're going to close it, which is style tag, which is just slash style inside the left and right arrows. And this is just telling the browser this is information that you need to use to style an element on this page. And so in here we're going to do hashtag scroll hyphen horizontal, and this is targeting. So we've set an ID on our view window. This is targeting that element. This is just saying, browser, on this specific element, we want you to treat it this way. So we'll do curly brackets, and then in here we're going to say overflow auto, and then we're going to add exclamation point and important. And this is telling the browser, use this, even if there's something else that should take priority, use these instructions for this element. All right, so we'll save that. We don't need that HTML to be visible anywhere, so we're just going to make it fixed, and we're going to do 1 pixel, and there we go. So now if we refresh this, we shouldn't see this content, the scrolling content group overflowing anymore. It should cut off right here at the edge of our view window, but we'll be able to scroll sideways because we do have an overflowing content. All right, so we've refreshed. See, we have our view window. Everything is neatly contained within that view window. And if I scroll sideways, you can see we're scrolling through the gradient underneath that that's in that scrolling content group. Okay, that is the structure, and it doesn't really look like anything right now, but that's how you want to view really when you're creating this horizontal scroll, even vertical scroll is kind of within a specific area of the page, and I'm assuming at some point Bubble will give us the ability similar to how they have, where we can check and say, hey, scroll horizontally if it overflows, or scroll vertically if it overflows. Then we'll get that option for scrolling horizontally as well. That will eliminate the need for the CSS on this, but your structure is still going to wind up being the same. You're going to want to have a view window where you define the area of the screen that you want to see this the content, and then within that you'll define the actual content inside another group. Okay, let's jump back in, and we're going to start building this out with we'll start building this out with a table and a table header. So we're going to grab a group, and we're going to put it inside our scrolling content. So we have our view window, scrolling content, and now this is going to be, we're going to show a table of users, if you remember from the beginning. This is going to be, we'll just call it header table users. All right, perfect. So let's set this to a row. We're going to change the fixed width. We're going to just say 0 fixed width, and we'll set our min height to 10. And then let's go ahead and let's see. We'll do some padding. We'll do 10 top and bottom, and then let's just do 14 left and right. And in fact, that's while we're here on our scrolling content group, we're going to bring this back down to 100% minimum width. We just created a longer minimum width to show without having content, and to show how it overflows. But we don't need that anymore. So we're going to set that to 100% minimum width, and then this header group will extend to the full width, and we're going to drop some text in here. And so let's just say first name. We're going to remove that style. I like having small column headers. So we'll say first name, and then that's not going to be fixed width. Let's give this 150 minimum. We'll leave the max width empty, and then min height on this will be 10 again. And so we'll copy and paste this. We need, let's see, in our header group, let's add it some gap spacing. So we'll just do column gap will be 15 pixels. Okay, so now let's change this to last name. And min width of 150. And then we'll say email. And then let's copy and paste that one more time. And then this will be our phone. And then in our email, let's just give our email, say 300 minimum width. I just want to make sure we have, something that overflows well here. So, and then we'll format our header just a little bit yet as well. Let's remove the default group and give it, we'll give it a flat color. We'll just say FA, nice little gray. We're going to do define each border independently. And so let's give it a bottom border, and we'll leave it at that. All right. And so if we refresh this, okay. So now we can see we have our column. Let's go ahead and make this smaller. And okay, so we have a horizontally scrolling header. And we'll jump back. Let's push this back up to the tops. We don't need it down. And we're going to let this be fit height to content, and we'll just set that at 10. All right, so now we're just working with the scrolling content group. And I'm actually going to give this a solid border as well. Okay. So what we need now is our repeating groups. Let's drop a repeating group in here. And we are going to use, we're going to use the Frames dummy data plugin. And this will be coming out with the updated version of Frames. We have a plugin that just has some dummy data in it to help give you data to populate your repeating groups and charts and all that. So let's type of content, user frames, and then we're going to get that by going to get data from API, and we'll just grab frames users. All right, and let's extend this. I'm going to call this, so this will just be table users. And I'm going to actually make this an aligned to parent. I like to do that with my repeating groups for the same reason that I do it on the page. It lets me drop other elements inside my repeating group cells without interrupting the flow of my other elements. So we'll just give it a 20 min width. We don't need any min width on that. And I'm going to copy and paste this header down here into the table. So let's call this, just call this cell table users. And we'll make this current cell users frames. All right, perfect. I'm gonna actually bump these to 15 pixels for the content. All right, perfect. So we'll do parent groups, user frames, name first. Parent group, user frames, name last. Parent group, user frames, email. And parent group, user frames, phone. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and we're going to set this to not a fixed number of rows. We'll make a minimum of 20 pixels height on the row, and then let's actually do the same on the repeating group. We don't need that to extend any further than that. And then, so we're actually here. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this gradient on the scrolling content. Don't need that anymore, and we don't need. We can set this min height. So we want to collapse it all the way around the actual content inside the scrolling content group. So let's refresh now. All right, perfect. So if we bring it in, we have a scrolling content. The page will scroll. We can scroll horizontally. And we have a basic working horizontally scrolling table. So, yay! All right. However, we can make this substantially more usable. And let's just jump on our table here. And this is kind of a sweet thing with the new Flex engine. We're just going to give this a max height of, say, 400 pixels. And so if we refresh this, so now we're going to have our we have our header here, and in fact, let's change this. This should not have, let's say, flat color would be white, and we should not have any additional borders. We have borders on the repeating group. So now we can see our header better, and then we have our cells, and this will scroll. We have a frozen header up here. The repeating group scrolls, and if we bring this down, we can scroll vertically. The header stays there, and we can scroll back and forth horizontally. So that's how to create a horizontally scrolling table in the new Flex engine. It's very simple. It works perfectly. And I hope this was helpful. So if it was, please share. And cheers, guys.